I'm Phil Spencer and welcome back to Bonkers for Boro. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a pretty frustrating international break as far as Middlesbrough are concerned. There has been some good points, but there's also been some very worrying injury news, which we're going to get onto in just a little bit. Now, when we talk about the 2 weeks of the international break, it did kind of come at quite a difficult time for Middlesbrough. The club had just come off the back of two massive victories over QPR and Luton, and Middlesbrough were really starting to build some momentum, I guess, as we started to push towards the top six. But as Lady Luck shone, we moved into the November international break. All of our star players headed off around the world to represent their countries, and for some, it went better than others. Of course, we're going to be mentioning about this man, Aidan Morris. He's one of the main worries going into this weekend's match against Oxford United. There has been a couple of other injury problems as well, but we are going to start this video on a more positive note. There have been some really encouraging performances during this international break, which has been great to see. People taking form from club level into the international scene, which has been great, and the hopeful feeling is that they'll be able to take that back into a club form as we move into a rather hectic period in Middlesbrough's championship season. Now, we're going to start off with this man, Ben Doak. He's a man who's rarely escaped headlines over the last few weeks. His form for Middlesbrough was just outstanding. I've done videos on this channel about just how good he was against QPR and against Luton. I also did a video about Middlesbrough's hopes of being able to keep him at the club beyond this season, with Liverpool rating him very, very highly indeed. And he headed off to Scotland, and he's really kind of emerging as Scotland's actual star man. Fans of north of the border are really, really excited about what Ben Doak has to offer. Both in the present day, but also moving forward into the future. And he certainly showed that in the first of Scotland's 2 matches in this international break, playing against Croatia at Hampden Park in the UEFA Nations League, where he had Josko Vardiol on toast, really. The Man City defender, I think he was bought for around about £70 million, just really couldn't handle Ben Doak. He was all over him, playing with that typical aggressive style of player that we've seen so often at the Riverside and around the Championship. He knows his place. He likes to get chalk on his boots, as we've mentioned before. He likes to get the ball, run at his defender, and just cause real problems with that direct, aggressive style of play. Vardiol couldn't handle him. Ben Doak ended up getting man of the match in that fixture, as you can see in the image attached. And Scotland ended up winning that match as well. Now, Steve Clarke was talking about Ben Doak in the build-up to the second match of the break against Poland, saying that there might be a need to not start him against Poland to kind of manage his minutes. You've got to remember that Ben Doak is a young lad. He's 19 years old. He was coming off a long-term injury last season as well, so the amount of football that he is playing this season is a huge step up from what he was doing previously. And so that's between Michael Carrick and Steve Clarke to sort of manage the amount of game time that he's getting. But lo and behold, Ben Doak did start for Scotland against Poland. He grabbed an assist after 3 minutes, and he was on the pitch for 66 minutes in that clash against Poland as well, as Scotland went on to win 2-1. Now, obviously, Steve Clarke was very keen to play Scotland's star man. You've got to think that Scotland supporters probably would have been a little bit unhappy had their best player not been playing in a match which was pretty crucial in terms of Scotland's hopes of avoiding relegation from their UEFA Nations League group. So it was pretty inevitable that he was going to start that game. The question mark for Middlesbrough will be whether he'll be deemed to be fully fit going into the match against Oxford. Obviously, it's a tricky one. Michael Carrick will want to play him as much as possible because he has been Middlesbrough's star man really over the last few weeks. But in the interest of managing his minutes, avoiding the potential of burnout or injury going into the festive run of fixtures, which is going to be coming up very, very quickly, it could be up to Michael Carrick to make quite a big decision. But that's going to be a tricky one for him to make. The other options at right wing are Izzy Jones. Obviously, he's been away on international duty with Guyana. So it's not exactly like he's been around Rockcliffe Park and he's going to be fully rested and ready to go. He'll be nursing a bit of jet lag and that sort of thing. So it's going to be a tricky decision for Michael Carrick to make. But all in all, it's been a really positive international break for Ben Doak. A pretty good one for his international teammate Tommy Conway as well. Conway made his first international start against Croatia His first start for the Tartan Army, and he's a player who looks really, really comfortable in the Scotland shirt. Someone who's really been tipped to become their natural number 9 moving forward. He didn't play at all against Poland. He was an unused substitute, but that's only good news for Middlesbrough, really, as we look towards the match against Oxford. Hopefully he'll be fully fit and sharp and ready to go for the weekend, which is really, really encouraging in the context of what we're going to be talking about a little bit later on in this video. Now, Azaz was one of Middlesbrough's star performers in the weeks before the international break. His performance against Luton was just outstanding. He's really, really starting to come into his own in a Middlesbrough shirt, and he's someone who you can really start to see why Michael Carrick was so keen to bring him in last January from Aston Villa following his loan spell with Plymouth. He got 2 goals against Luton. He's been getting assists as well. He's really just sort of strutting his stuff really at the Riverside Stadium, and I guess he'll have been hoping to take that onto the international scene with Ireland, but that didn't really happen for him. It was quite a frustrating one. I think Ireland are in a position where they're sort of trying to grind out games and control them. He played against Finland, a match that Ireland won 1-0, but he came on as a second half substitute, with Ireland taking a bit more of a conservative approach in that game. He also came off the bench for Ireland against England at Wembley, a match that obviously England went on to win 5-0. He came on, he played on the right side of midfield, which isn't really his natural position. It was a game when Ireland were, I guess, under the cosh really for long spells. So it probably wasn't the sort of contest that was made for Azaz. But as far as Middlesbrough are concerned, it was probably a fairly successful international break. He didn't play a huge amount of minutes, didn't pick up any injuries. He'll be coming back probably a little bit frustrated that he didn't play more for Ireland. And so he'll be coming back to the Riverside and for the other match against Oxford, chomping at the bit to get involved and really, really keen to pick up the run of form that saw him do so well before jetting off to join his international teammates. A little roundup of some of the other players who've been away on international duty. So Riley McGree has been away with Australia. He played 90 minutes against Saudi Arabia in their first match of the international break. At the time of recording, he's going to be playing later on against Bahrain. That was another long trip for him. He's had to fly over to Australia and then he's had to fly to Bahrain for this next match. And so fingers crossed, Middlesbrough will be hoping to welcome Riley McGree back to Teesside without any injuries. There's always a bit of a question mark with Riley McGree in terms of his sharpness when he comes back. Quite naturally, it's a long old flight, and so it may well be. It's probably quite likely, in fact, that Michael Carrick will choose not to start him against Oxford United this weekend. It's often the case that he tends to give him a little bit of a rest or put him on the bench, just so he's got a little bit longer to kind of acclimatise back to life in the UK. But for Middlesbrough, so far so good in terms of Riley McGree's time away. No injuries to speak of on that basis. Elsewhere, Isaiah Jones and Anthony Dijksteel have both been away on international duty as well. Izzy Jones played 90 minutes as Guyana beat Barbados 4-1. And Dijksteel and Suriname were narrowly beaten 1-0 against Canada. Both of them playing a lot of minutes, but no injuries to speak of. And both of those players will be hopeful of coming back and continuing what was a decent couple of weeks for them, I guess. Izzy Jones, maybe not so much because he hadn't played a huge amount, but Anthony Dijksteel's really been coming into his own over the last few weeks, putting in some really good performances. He started at right back against Luton and looked very, very assured. For a player who looked like he might have been leaving Middlesbrough over the summer, he's done so well. And in my opinion, he's doing everything right to earn a new contract at the club. So he'll certainly be hoping to come back from international duty to pick up where he left off. So they're all really positive things. Seny Dieng, he's also been away on international duty, but he hasn't actually played any minutes. So while it's been a lengthy flight for him, as he's headed off to link up with his Senegal teammates, he'll be hoping to come back and slot back into the number 1 shirt, be ready to go and show his international manager what he's missing by not selecting him. So they've been the sort of positive stories, I guess, coming from the international break. There have been a lot of stories, a lot of speculation swirling around on social media with regards to two quite worrying cases, I guess, from Middlesbrough's point of view, from an injury point of view. First of all, we're going to start off with Hayden Hackney. Now, Hayden Hackney, obviously, he missed long spells of last season. This season, he's been absolutely electric. He took a little while to warm up, but then he has really found his feet in Michael Carrick's team. Formed that formidable partnership with Aidan Morris, and the last few weeks he's just really started to show the immense quality that he's got, and someone who is a Premier League player in the making. He was called up for the England England under 21 squad for their latest matches. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to play in either match because he picked up an injury and withdrew from the squad in the build-up to their first fixture. Now, officially, it hasn't really been confirmed what the injury problem is. It was something which warranted him withdrawing from the squad. He returned back to Rockcliffe Park, where Middlesbrough's medical team have been able to look over him. The suggestion is that it might not be anything too serious, but obviously we don't know at this point. That's something which will be confirmed later on in the week. I'm recording this video on Tuesday, and obviously Michael Carrick will be doing his pre-Oxford press conference on Thursday afternoon at about 2:00. So I guess that's when fans will be able to find out a little bit more about Hayden Hackney's situation. Some of the rumours being that he rolled his ankle away on international duty in training, which I guess is quite a difficult one to assess, because that could be anything from a few days or a week out to a few weeks or even a few months, I guess, depending on the damage that's been done. If it turns into a sort of ligament injury, that is something which could be a much more long-term issue. But Middlesbrough fans will certainly be hoping that it won't be anything too serious. It's been enough to rule him out of England under 21's latest games, but he's returned to Rockcliffe. They'll be doing the best for him to try and get him back fit as soon as possible, because even if he's not ready for Oxford, the hope will just be that he's not out too long term, because with so many matches coming through November, December and January, Middlesbrough really need one of their best players in Hayden Hackney to be fit as soon as possible. So really hoping that it's going to be good news as far as he's concerned, and I guess that will be confirmed by Michael Carrick on Thursday in his press conference. But the big injury problem, which has really got supporters worried, is that suffered by Aidan Morris. Now, Aidan Morris jetted back to the United States for their double header against Jamaica. He was expected to play a part in both of those games, but he withdrew from the USA national team squad in the days before the first match with Jamaica due to what the US national team described as a sprained right knee. Now, there hasn't been a huge amount of detail that's been given about his situation. So similar to Hayden Hackney, Middlesbrough fans are a little bit in the dark as to what severity there is around this injury. What we do know is that he stuck around with the US national team for a little bit longer. They did some I guess, pre-assessments on the knee injury. There was no rush from Middlesbrough side to get him back to Teesside as soon as possible. There's clearly a good relationship there, clearly a trusting relationship that they back the US national team to look after him in those days. Obviously, he will now be heading back to Teesside before this weekend. But the question mark remains as to what severity there'll be around this knee injury. A sprain could be something as minor as a couple of weeks out, which obviously happened a week ago. So that could, in the glass half full scenario, be a situation where he's not out for too long and he could return back before too long. If it is something that is slightly longer, it is something that could end up lasting 4 to 6 weeks. It could be a significant spell on the sidelines, given that we're in mid-November now, with fixtures coming so thick and fast through the winter months. If you're looking at 6 weeks, possibly 8 weeks, all of a sudden you're looking towards January before he's going to come back. And Aidan Morris has been such a key part of Middlesbrough's plans this season. For me, he's probably been Middlesbrough's most undroppable player. He's been absolutely sensational since he joined from Columbus Crew over the summer. That partnership that he's formed with Hayden Hackney in the centre of midfield has just been outstanding. It's one of the best in the Championship as far as I'm concerned. And so the prospect of losing him for a number of weeks is a real blow. I don't think any of our other midfield options offer the same sort of quality on the ball. Positive play in terms of looking forward for their passes, the same aggression that he's got, that turn of pace, and to be able to get away from his man and break clear and set up patterns of play from a deep lying position. I don't think anyone else can do that. So he would be a massive miss, and particularly with the injury worry around Hayden Hackney as well. The thought of both of them being out for a longer spell is quite unthinkable, really. I know that we're in a decent position and that we've got Johnny Howson and Dan Barlaser, who are both very experienced at this level. Both players will be more than comfortable coming into the team should they need to against Oxford, and then any matches that come in the other weeks after that. They'll certainly be able to do that. But I think as far as Middlesbrough are concerned, as a team who are challenging for promotion, we'll be looking to really kick on and continue that positive run of form from before the international break. We really need Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney there. They've been so important for the club. They play in the most important position on the park in central midfield. They're behind everything that Middlesbrough do. And so it'll be really important for Middlesbrough to get those two back as soon as possible. As I said, it's a little bit woolly in terms of the full details that we've got on both of those players. But Michael Carrick will, I suspect, address both of their injury situations in his press conference on Thursday afternoon. He'll speak at 2 p.m. I think that'll be live. Streamed on Middlesbrough's official YouTube channel. It usually is. So hopefully there'll be some good news for Middlesbrough supporters, because, yeah, it's going to be a really important couple of weeks coming up. Oxford United on paper should be a very winnable game for the club. But it's one that we really win, because we do need to continue that momentum that we built before the international break. It's always frustrating timing when the 2-week international break comes after a really positive run of form. But hopefully this time Middlesbrough will be able to pick up where they left off, get a win against Oxford, regardless of who's fit and available, get a win there, and then really go into the winter months with some momentum behind them. So, yeah, I really want to hear from you on this situation. I know there's been a lot of worry from supporters on social media about the injury situations, particularly to Hayden, Hackney, and to Aidan Morris. So let me know in the comments below how worried you are about those two injuries, how big a blow it would be for Middlesbrough if they missed those two players in the coming weeks. Drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think on Hayden Hackney, and if you have enjoyed this video, please do hit like and hit subscribe as well. And yeah, I will catch up with you next time.